The Battle of Taanab was one of Lando's greatest moments, and he shamelessly used it for free drinks and favors throughout his entire life. Today, I'll illustrate the battle and read Lando's own perspective from the Essential Guide to Warfare. Taanab? Really, Vorin? That tale's been told so many times. Maybe another day. Wait, where are you going? Tell you what, kid, because I like you, and because I know you feel like getting me another glass of Corellian Reserve, I'll tell it just one more time. But only this once. Taanab's not much, an AG world whose only redeeming feature is that it sits at the intersection of the Prolemian and the Hapen Spine. I was there not long after Yavin, nursing a warm Evla in Pandath's least worst casino when the alert sirens started going off. The Taanab defense fleet? Bunch of rust buckets, gunships that were old when huts had a conscience. I didn't think they'd even get off the atmosphere, and I said as much. The sad sack bartender told me it might be better if they didn't. The inbound ships were the Norulak pirates, arriving for their annual tribute, and he said the only question was if they'd feel like shooting this year. I couldn't believe it. The Noris were low and mean, but they were also a bunch of amateurs, and everybody knew it. There was no way the Taanab should have let themselves be pushed around by such a sorry lot, but you know what they say, once you get used to being scared, you let a lot of bad things happen to you. I watched on holovids as the Noris intercepted this week's rum convoy. There were about 24 of them up there, maneuvering like a herd of nerfs. They couldn't have flown worse if they had already hit the rum, and I knew just one real pilot with a little courage could mop up the lot of them. And then it hit me. There was a real pilot right there on Taanab, one who just might be crazy enough to pull it off. I don't think I need to tell you who that was, do I, Vorin? What's that? No, he wasn't there. Stang Vorin, you knew I meant me. I told everybody in that cantina as much, and this rich merchant guy named Danager laughed and said if I drove the Noris off, he'd give me the deed to one of his breweries on Klendor. That, of course, got everybody laughing at me. I think I also got offered the Imperial Palace and the Spectre of Nopachi, but you know what? I didn't mind. I love a good Klendoran ale, and this was a chance at a lifetime supply. So a few minutes later, I fired up the Mama Tried, stood her on her tail, and went topside. The Taanab boys were spread out in orbit around the Banthal docks, leaving a trail of bolts behind them. The Noris, meanwhile, were still trying not to fly into each other and whooping over the comm. They had 2 corvettes and a bunch of rusty gunships painted with boldly drawn fangs and claws. You know, typical tacky pirate stuff. So I headed for the Taanab Moon's ice ring and waited. See, I'd picked up several hundred Connor nets I'd promised to run out to Sirocco for this guy I knew. When the Noris got close enough, which took the better part of forever, I shot out among them and let the Connors go right in the middle of their formation. Being vac-heads, about half of them immediately hit their jets, flying right into the nets and shorting out their systems. 3 or 4 of the others flew straight into each other like spooked Nuna. Before they could get it sorted out, I fired up Mama's tractor beam and started slingshotting chunks of ice from the moon right into him. The Noris might have been amateurs, but by this point, they were spitting mad, and I didn't want them to open up on me or the Taanabs. Speaking of the Taanabs, that was about the time they arrived with their guns blazing, but you know what? I had already racked up 19 kills in about as many minutes, and shot up the Corvette's coolant pipes, taking their engines offline. I had a bunch of nets left, so I fired those into the escape pod bays, and after that, nobody was getting off those ships. The Taanabs called in the imps, who showed up a few days later and captured their corvettes with all hands, and that was the end of the annual tributes. The Taanabs offered me marshal of their defense fleet, but I said no. You know what salary a planetary militiaman pulls in, Vorin? Besides, nothing ruins the cut of a good suit quicker than epaulets. You remember that, Vorin? They ever want to make you a general, you insist on braid. Epaulets are showy, braids classy. Besides, I had a new brewery to inspect, one that turned out to be run by a Zeltron who was pretty as a Talendian moonflower and mean as a Hismali hawksnake. But, Vorin, my friend, that's another story.